you can basically think of your authentic expression as a magnet. It attracts certain forces and energies and repels other ones. And the reason why this is so powerful is because if you unconditionally express yourself in an authentic way, what it's going to attract is people who resonate with what you say, with your energy, with who you are, with your values, with your principles, with your underlying intentions, with your goals. And when you habitually act in inauthentic ways, right, you sacrifice yourself, for the needs of others without getting your own needs met. When you people please, when you stay stuck in stuff that you hate, when you act out of alignment with your intuition and your intrinsic motivation, it just attracts things that you don't really like, because that's really what you're putting out there, right? So your authenticity is a truthful expression of who you are, right? Authenticity requires honesty. It's what's true. It's what's actual about you, your expression, how you feel, think, your values, your the flow of energy in your body, your feelings, emotions, etc. So truthful expression, authentic expression, is actually needed for personal health and the health of your relationships and just connections to people. It's actually needed also for your career as well, because when you don't build a life based off of truth, right, instead you base it off of lies, delusions, dishonesty. And that's just very fundamentally uncomfortable, because a lie is something artificial and you have to continuously give energy to that thing. It gets quite exhausting, whereas the truth is just what's already the case. The truth is that which that is, right? It's just what is the case. So you don't have to maintain the truth. It just already exists. You don't have to create something artificial and give energy to it over and over and over and over again. It's just what naturally occurs. So inauthentic expression also creates a sense of heaviness within you, and it blocks the natural flow of energy. It blocks the natural arising of your instincts, of your intuition. Right? So authentic expression isn't a very conceptual thing. It's not a very logical thing. It's more emotional, instinctual, intuitive. It's just a natural way of being in the world. And of course, we're never really taught how do you really just be yourself in the world. Not taught in school or any of this stuff. In fact, we're taught to do the opposite. We're taught to conform. We're taught to ignore ourselves, right? Especially in school. A good example of this is a kid has to go to the bathroom. He asks the teacher, "Miss, may I go to the bathroom?" Teacher says no. He has to start ignoring his need to go to the bathroom, right? He's got to also sacrifice himself for the approval of the authority, right? There's a lack of emphasis on individual authentic expression. Instead, it's just conforming to a particular agenda, right? There's a lack of intrinsic motivation for most kids, even in school, to be doing a lot of things that they're doing. It doesn't really come from their soul and what they truly desire, from their personality type, from their values, right? It doesn't come from their organic long-term development. It comes from some preconceived agenda that everyone has to adapt to, rather than schools adapting to the personality of the child. We don't even ask, who are we teaching? We don't even ask, who is this child, right? His personality type, his brain type, whether he's neurodivergent or neurotypical, what he needs, what makes him feel safe, what makes him feel valued, which are all needed for him to actually learn, right? If you want people to learn, you have to provide safety and value them, right? Sense of connection. And then on top of that, learning is extremely easy, right? So there's a lack of emphasis on just truthful expression in our culture and how to actually embody this. And this actually creates all sorts of mental, emotional dysfunction, spiritual dysfunction, physical dysfunction. When your mind and your emotions are really out of whack and there's all sorts of disease, it actually impacts your body heavily. None of this stuff is separate from one another. So ultimately, it's fear and trauma that blocks authentic expression. There's a massive fear of disapproval that blocks people from being authentic. I have a video titled "Stop Being So Inauthentic" where I go more in depth about that. But basically, we are very sensitive to rejection from other people, especially from parents. And because of that, it's just really wired into you to conform, to really ignore yourself. And it's easy to deceive yourself here into thinking that no, I'm always authentic, or authenticity is this idea that I have in my mind. In actuality, without years of practice, you actually struggle to be authentic. You struggle to listen to your intuition. With always being distracted by this little device right here, right, and just endless junk food and just, endless distractions and stimulation, you actually disconnect from yourself, and you really can't be authentic. You really can't authentically express. Right? It's actually quite difficult. It requires a lot of work. I don't really want to use the word work here. I don't want it to seem like a grind, but it requires consciousness, right? It requires an actual development within you, a sense of growth. So basically, fear and trauma blocks authentic expression, right? And I want to emphasize the importance of really aligning your life with your authentic expression, your career, your daily habits, your connections, right? So you have to align your life with a lot of your core values, your principles, your core desires, your true intentions, your intrinsic motivation as opposed to extrinsic motivation. All this stuff comes from inside of you, right? Rather than any kind of external force imposing it upon you and you just kind of following along in this robotic, mechanical, unconscious-like fashion. Right? So ideally, you want to align your entire life with what your soul wants to bring into the world, with what wants to emerge through your being, rather than always being scared of living your true calling. Right? You want to actually have the courage to be truthful. Right? And this is actually quite rare in the world. We're not actually a very developed species. Right? Humanity is actually very immature, and we're at very low levels of consciousness and human development. And to really be authentic, you need to really raise your consciousness and develop yourself, because at low levels of consciousness, what's really going on is there's a lot of manipulating, there's a lot of attachment, there's a lot of egoic identification, and there's a lot of trauma and wounding, and it's a lot of this shit that prevents us from really expressing ourselves in an open, honest, truthful way. Right? So, well-being is needed for authenticity. Self-connection is needed for authenticity. And in our world, well-being of any kind whatsoever and self-connection isn't really valued. What's valued is more so doing what you're told than just utility, practicality. Slowly we're beginning to value authentic expression and a lot of things that help foster that, right? But as a culture, we're still just really failing. So you as an individual have to take it into your own hands to construct your own life around your own authenticity. No one's really going to do this for you. You're not going to go out into the world and find this for you. This is like a long-term project for your life. It actually requires vision. It requires you to self-actualize. It requires you to ultimately self-transcend. Right? This isn't just going to stumble. You're not going to just stumble into this. It's going to fall from the sky, right? It's not going to just, Merry Christmas, Santa Claus just delivers it to you. This is a very deep psychological change that involves really going into a lot of your deepest fears, really cleaning out your mind, a lot of shadow work, a lot of awakening, a lot of, I want to use the term growing up, right? But what the word growing up here means is just long-term psychological development, right? Ken Wilber likes to talk about waking up, growing up, cleaning up. Waking up is awakening to the true nature of reality, spirituality, awakening to pure consciousness and breaking the egoic identification. Growing up is increasing your psychological development and expanding your sense of self and having values that actually evolve over time, right? And a sense of identity that evolves over time. And cleaning up is cleaning up your shadow, your trauma, all the things that make you really close down. And all these three categories are very connected. Right? So spiritual awareness is actually needed for authenticity. The reason why this is the case is because being present is needed for authenticity. Like I said, self-connection is needed to be authentic. Without self-connection, you can't express yourself genuinely and honestly in the moment because you're disconnected from yourself. You can't really express yourself in an honest way if you're always disconnected and disconnecting from yourself. You need structures in your life that help you to connect to yourself, like meditation, going out in nature, reading, writing, journaling, learning psychology, take personality tests, creative expression, things like this. Get enough sleep, right? Eat well, right? Eat foods that make you feel light, clear, energized, having a proper diet, cutting out distractions, etc. So you can't truly authentically express from egoic consciousness, right? Because we're not the ego. You're not your thoughts. You're not your emotion. You're not your body, right? There's just pure consciousness, right? And this formless consciousness manifests itself as form. And it's actually this level of development, this level of consciousness, this awareness of yourself that you need to begin to move past just the egoic identification and really open yourself up to life. And from this place, authentic expression happens naturally, because the ego is this sort of constricting, contracting, limiting, and overall just like tensing and repressing and I think I might have used the word resisting, maybe, probably not, I don't know, resisting force. And you literally cannot express yourself in an open, honest, and authentic way if you have this big fat ego in the way. It's just always going to restrict you and repress it and resist and constrict. So you need to actually begin to move past your ego as well. You need to develop a healthy ego and then deconstruct the egoic mechanisms. Right? So you can't actually be authentic when you're just living from egoic consciousness, because the ego isn't who you really are. You transcend and include the ego. Basically, kind of the way human life works is we're born, we don't have a sense of self, and then around the age of 2, the sense of ego begins to come online in response to the reality of pain, fear, impermanence, a lack of a definite sense of self, because the ego has a lot of survival value. But then, at one point in our life, we have to change. You know, what we built up, it's not functional in adult life. The ego is made for children, essentially, so that they can navigate the world and survive. But once you're an adult, you can really begin cleaning up, waking up, and growing up. Right? You can really begin to do this inner psychological work and really develop yourself into a highly evolved, mature human being. Right? So then it gets to the point where you must deconstruct the ego, and this is completely essential for really being authentic, because the ego is this sort of delusion. It's this false sense of identity. So how are you going to express yourself when fundamentally you don't even know what you are? You don't even know what the nature of your own existence is, right? So as sort of complicated as that sounds, you can check out a lot of my other previous videos. They'll help you out with understanding that. You can also check out certain books on my free book list on the, I believe, consciousness and spirituality section of it. It'll also help you with this kind of stuff, right? So your authenticity is really your power, in a sense, right? There's a lot of power in just truthfully expressing who you are. And when you're always minimizing yourself and acting out of fear, right, there's just this sort of I want to use the word just less powerful, but like you're not inhabiting your body, you're not inhabiting the space that you occupy in the world. You're not really clear about your values. There's just this fog. There's this delusion. There's this fear. There's just this egoic identification that just blocks all the most profound and beautiful things, you know, about your existence. It's like you're habitually getting in your own way, and you don't really know how to stop, because it's so wired into your mind to just habitually get in your own way. Right? So meditation, mindfulness meditation, is really important for connecting to yourself, watching your thoughts, processing your emotions, getting into your body, feeling what's going on in the present experience. Not using the witness and awareness to disassociate from what's going on, but using awareness to become conscious of what's happening in the present and really feel it fully, embody this existence fully, rather than always trying to transcend it and move beyond it. Because once you get to formless consciousness, it's going to push you right back into the world. It wants to be in form, right? The formless wants to manifest itself into the world, right? It's quite counterintuitive, because ultimately there's no distinction between formless consciousness and your body, thought, anything, right? You're absolutely everything in this existence, and you're nothing. It's paradoxical, it's counterintuitive, but it's true, and you can become conscious of this for yourself. You don't have to believe anything I say in this video. I could care less if you believe me or not. I'm just sharing this for those of you who are like really interested and really sincere, right? This is really for those of you who are sincere. You have a very sincere heart, right? And you actually want to implement this into your life, and you really, really want to wake up, grow up, and clean up, right? Your soul didn't come here to live an inauthentic, mediocre life, okay? That's it for this video. You can apply to work with me one-to-one. The link is in the pinned comment and the description. Take it easy.